People are frightened of forgetting, and if people can realise that they will never forget, because you don't, so you're never ever going to forget the person who's died. So forgetting is something that in actual fact doesn't belong in bereavement, because if you forgot, you wouldn't ever be bereaved.
Bereavement is a universal experience. It affects us all at some time, and yet it is often misunderstood. So the purpose of this programme is to try and explain it in a novel way.
Sisters, you're a right wind-up artist. Facts,
Oh,
right?
God, not you as well!
Maybe we'll get some peace now.
You're not very nice to your sister.
You don't live with her. I'm hungry. Bet there's something in this fridge.
The treasures, my children, each one is a gem. They're mine and I made them. There's none quite like them.
Bye, Mark. Can't stop bus to catch.
Playing for them today. Can't miss it. Thanks for so
What
much.
we're trying to do is to draw some characters that are archetypal. So it's, in a sense, a typical family with all the stresses and strains of a normal family life.
That wasn't offside, was it? No. That was clearly not offside. I can't believe it. That's ruined our chance to lead. Someone get an ambulance, please! Someone get an ambulance! You're right, what's happened? You're right. What's happened? Stop, run down. Someone please get an ambulance!
We've shown a catastrophic bereavement. This is one of the worst sorts of events. It's something that I guess every parent will have thought about. And we've tried to show the way different members of the family react.
I just don't believe it.
I suppose I don't have to take him to school today.
The special thing about the bereavement we've just seen is that it's a death of a child. So it's what I would call a topsy-turvy bereavement. It's an unexpected bereavement. One expects elderly people to die. It's in the rung of things, the ladder of things. But one doesn't expect a child to die. One doesn't expect to bury your child. And that, I think, makes it very, very destructive and very, very powerful, and very, very powerful emotions in the people who are involved, i.e. the parents and the siblings and also the friends, because it might be their first brush with death, and it's also the death of a peer, and again, that is unexpected.
Don't offer me bottled comfort. That won't bring back my boy. Don't drown my pain in liquor. I want no false joy. Don't offer
anger is very difficult for people to deal with because one doesn't like anger. People don't like anger anyway, and people often try and numb anger. And I think the way the father was drinking was a very good example of how he was trying to numb his anger. I think the mother was very angry, didn't know what to do with it, and was then turning her anger against the father, who didn't seem to be able to express his anger. And so she was getting very angry with him. And I also think, although they couldn't say it, I think they were also very angry with the child for dying. Because I think that's something else that comes in. You know, why was he at the bus stop? Why was he standing there? He should have known better. He should have seen the car coming. I mean, all those sort of things that people think. And those are the things that people find very difficult to talk about, because they're the things that you aren't meant to say. You're not meant to speak ill of the dead. There are a lot of myths about death.
I thought it would pass by now. Sleep is a nightmare.
I thought it would pass by now. The day is a nightmare.
The pain is so real, it will not stop. I cannot see beyond me. It is anguish I feel deep inside. And yet I remember how it used to be. Kind and thoughtful, caring and true.
I don't want any breakfast today.
My brother is dead. How can that be? I want him beside me to see what I see. My mother and father need someone. They want me to be him, but I'm not the one. I need to cry, just like they do. I can't be my brother. What can I do? My brother is dead. Please let him lie. I want to be with him. I want to
I'm going skating tonight.
No, you'll be back too late.
Well, you treat me like a little child.
Your mum will pick you up from school.
Oh, Dad, you're being unrealistic. She's got to go out by herself sometime.
No,
When?
never.
Come on, Susie, I'll give you a lift.
the younger sister, who is obviously feeling very over-precious. You know, she's not allowed out suddenly. They can't let her grow up, because if they let her grow up, they stop controlling her, and if they stop controlling her, she might go out and get knocked down. And so she becomes elevated to a very precious state, but it's not really her that they're looking at. They're just looking at her as a child. And she mentions that she suffers from anorexia, which again is interesting because, of course, anorexia is all about getting rid of feelings. Well, one of the things anorexia is about is getting rid of feelings.
They don't see me. Their eyes are cold. My pain is unknown, for they're blind in their sorrow. They don't see that I'm hurting. I loved him too. I know that they suffer, but why make it worse? Closed up and cold, they push me away. It's now that I need them. I loved him too. Don't keep on touching me. Leave me alone. I'm sorry. I need you. Please love me still.
Got the older child, the older daughter, who is obviously older and the oldest of the three children, who feels totally ignored, as if she doesn't exist anymore, as if she is no use anymore. And I think that's very symbolic, because obviously they can't control her, and it's almost like she's off and away and they're not interested in her anymore. So I think it's actually very symbolic.
I'm so pleased you decided to call him Johnny.
In some religions, it's actually a matter of course that a baby is named for someone who has died. And I think that's a very natural thing. The only time when obviously it can be a little bit difficult is when the weight of the expectation of the dead child gets placed upon the live child. And that can happen sometimes. And obviously that's an enormous legacy for a newborn baby and subsequently child to deal with.
My thoughts tears in your eyes tonight. That film on the box make death so trite. He's gone, my love, John, our son. Bid him farewell, his journey's done.
bereavement needs time. The worst thing for someone or a family who's recently bereaved is then for suddenly to make some very dramatic changes, because they're actually then trying to leave the bereavement and trying to get away from it. And bereavements can't be got away from. It doesn't matter whether you move house, change job, change your hairstyle, anything. Bereavements can't be got away from. They've got to be worked through. And if they're not worked through, then they're not resolved. And if they're not resolved, then a person might well have problems later on in life.
Where did you go, my darling? Where have you been, my love?
I went to hell. I wanted to find the evil of God. I found instead my own. Thank you for loving me still.
Phrases like back to normal and turning the clock back and all that sort of thing, those things just don't exist. There's no such thing as back to normal. You know, we all change every day. We get up and we do things, and things are never back to normal. And I think that's the illusion that people think about. They think, oh, we'll get back to normal. But of course, you're never going to get back to normal. Just like when a good thing happens, you know, when you get married or you have a baby, things change and they never go back. And I think the same sort of thing is about death and resolution.
We've shown the family come to some sort of resolution about this, and I think it's important to appreciate that people don't return to normal. The best they can do is to come to some sort of accommodation with the ghastly thing that's happened to them and to get on with their life to some extent.
I think people confuse resolution with forgetting. People are frightened of forgetting the person who's died. And as time goes on and they actually learn to accommodate the loss, they become more and more frightened that they're forgetting the person. You'll hear people say, oh, I was laughing and then I suddenly caught myself because I'm laughing and X is dead. And so people are frightened of forgetting. And if people can realise that they will never forget, because you don't, so you're never ever going to forget the person who's died. There are obviously milestones. The first year, which is just full of anniversaries, the first birthday, the first this, the first that, the first date of the actual bereavement. Those are obviously very important. But it's very destructive to then think, oh, well, the person's through the first year, so they must be okay. Because in actual fact, because people are aware of the first year, they're going to be giving the person who's bereaved more attention, and they're then going to be forgotten maybe in the second year. And when the person is forgotten, that's when the bereaved person is forgotten, that's when they probably need most attention. It just goes on and on and on. And you can find someone 50 years on maybe crying at a certain time because they're thinking of a certain part of that person who's dead. So it's endless. But life is loss. Life is death. The only certain thing in life is death. So how can we get over it?